Hey guys, we are back with the module on hormones. So hormones is a very misunderstood topic, and I don't want to go too deep, but it's just enough to give you guys a basic understanding, because you're probably being bombarded with like supplement ads, whatever, and like raise your testosterone, raise your growth hormone, and this, that, the other. So I just, on a very broad scale, want to talk about the hormones you can influence versus the ones you cannot, okay? So what you can influence is your cortisol, right? Cortisol being a stress hormone that when you're working out or you're shivering or you're cold, whatever, gets pushed out and then releases free fatty acids or carbohydrates into the bloodstream to be used up for energy so you can run, lift, whatever, right? So cortisol has a very bad rap as it makes you fat and this and the other. That's not true. So without cortisol, you'll be dead, right? So lowering your cortisol to zero is not a good idea. What's the problem nowadays is, and this is again, I'm going very broad here. In the olden days, the Neanderthal, his cortisol was raised maybe once or twice a day. Like there was a dangerous animal, he ran away, and then he got into a scuffle with the neighbor or so. Today, you have more like of a constant low stress environment, which means cortisol levels can be always almost elevated, right? So that can lead to sleep disturbances, overeating, like snacking, muscle loss because of that being a catabolic hormone. So it is important, and that's again as much as you can do to control your stress levels in a day. So look, I live in New York City. I get it. Life is stressful, right? But sometimes it just pays to think, okay, is this really that important? Do I need to do this right now? Do I need to have 16 projects on my desk? And will this matter in 6 weeks? Like, not to sound too philosophical, but sometimes we can weed out a lot of our perceived like crisis du jour by just thinking it through and then being like, okay, I don't really need to do all these things right now. This can wait. And then that also kind of ties in with sleep hygiene. It really pays to do something that brings the parasympathetic nervous system down before going to bed. Like whatever that is for you. Some people meditate. I personally like to read paper books, not the Kindle, like no internet. Whatever that is for better sleep hygiene, that would also have a cortisol management. And stressing out over cortisol, of course, makes it only worse, right? So we have to accept that in this day and age, there is a certain level of stress at all times, but there's also ways where we can say, okay, these two things are just not worth stressing me out right now. So that's cortisol. Then insulin, being another messenger hormone, basically when the levels of blood sugar go high, the body pushes out insulin, GLUT4 first, and then that's being shuffled to the muscles. By the same token, when it's low, we are getting hungry, sometimes even woozy, we have to eat some carbohydrates to feel better. So the problem, insulin does not make you fat because it doesn't have any calories. The problem is, again, that very often insulin in many people is constantly elevated, right? So the blood sugar levels are constantly high because they're snacking, eating, not exercising, which would burn off that blood sugar. So then they become insulin resistant and diabetes type 2 people. So obviously that is what this whole class is all about. That can be avoided by a better lifestyle, by better nutrition, and by generally being leaner. Okay, so that's completely in your hand. Then there are the sex hormones, the testosterone, DHTs of the world. They are what they are. There's really no supplement or scheme of training that will significantly raise testosterone. You can take things like zinc, magnesium, that probably won't hurt, but don't confuse that with steroids, okay? So you're not gonna get into super physiological levels. You might get a small bump. Now, a healthy lifestyle will help with that. Good sleep, good nutrition, good training, generally positive outlook on life definitely helps. But whenever you come across something that says X raise your testosterone by 300%, just like, no, it will not. Because think about it, if that would work, why would anybody risk their health or sometimes their freedom to take steroids, smuggle them in from Mexico, if they could just do that plant from Siberia, whatever it's being pushed that day, right? Similar growth hormone. So yes, growth hormone goes up when you're fasting, but then the body, what does it do with it? It's not to build muscle, and it's also not up at a level where it would be making a difference, which again is why people spend thousands and thousands of dollars a month to get synthetic growth hormone, because at that level, it does make a difference, okay? Now, again, you can influence growth hormone through training and just generally eating clean, but do not expect the levels of a drug, right? So with the hormones, the two hormones that can really, shall we say, hurt you would be cortisol and insulin. So those you should and you can control to some extent, right? So definitely focus on that. And the rest, just, it is what it is. There is a reason people take drugs, why people spend large amounts of money on those drugs, because they actually work. So there is no shortcut in terms of raising testosterone and growth hormone. But if you, for general health purposes, do your best to control your stress levels, your cortisol, you make sure your insulin is in check, you're not constantly eating donuts, for instance, then you will have a much greater chance at longevity, higher quality of life. And that's really what this class is about. My God.